Welcome to the BBNJ workshop. We're here at Radisson Hotel in Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Ariana Beery and I am the High Seas Youth Ambassador for Trinidad and Tobago. I'm joined here today with Marcia Tinzo from the Environmental Management Authority, who is a Senior 3P People Public Private Officer, formerly Senior Environmental Education Officer, and our national focal point for action for climate empowerment under the UNFCCC. How are you doing today?
Not bad, thank you. I'm so far enjoying the workshop. Very informative. Things that I knew already, but just putting things into perspective. It's very important that we protect our marine environment, and particularly those that are outside of our jurisdiction. Because as it was mentioned this morning, although we are not, it's not part of our what should I say, the immediate environment, but we all affect the open seas and the wide seas. So that is something very important that we need to manage and to be cognizant of, because I think awareness, because of my role in environmental education, I think awareness is always important, because without awareness, people would not change. And as our minister said this morning in his feature address, our line minister, that is Dr. Kennedy Swarat Singh, Minister for Planning, Economic Affairs and the Development. He talked about the fact that, you know, things are happening. Is it that people do not care, or is it that they know, but is it that we need enforcement? Because I keep saying that we have so much legislation, and I'm speaking from a Trinidad and Tobago context, that we have so much legislation, but we are not enforcing. So it's not about developing new legislation, it's about enforcing what we have and using what we have, interpreting what we have to treat with other things. I'm not an attorney, mind you, but I think working with our environmental legislation, the Environmental Management Act, Chapter 3505, which is like, I would say, our Bible, which we all seek guidance, reference from in terms of interpreting and carrying out our substantive functions, there is room. So I can segue into marine environment. Now, the Institute of Marine Environment is the body, the government agency that has jurisdiction or purview on the marine resources or protection of marine resources. However, again, as I talk about those linkages, we have subsidiary legislation under the Environmental Management Act, and that is these environmentally sensitive species rules. So we have the environmentally sensitive areas rules, because the thing is, you cannot protect species unless you protect their habitat. So the species rules treat with the 5 species of sea turtles that come to our shore. Of course, everybody knows about the leatherback, but there's also the green sea turtle, the olive ridley, the loggerhead, and the hawksbill. And when we talk about protecting, we have to remember that these turtles come to nest on our shores. Protecting life is about also protecting reproduction. And this is how they reproduce. So if we're not protecting those nurseries where they actually come to reproduce, where, you know, their eggs and the hatchlings or then they're already endangered. And if that does not continue, if we don't protect them, you know, they'll become extinct. So that is how I see our role in protecting the marine environment. So again, I want to underscore the fact that there is tremendous overlap in the work that we do with the marine environment, and the IMA and the EMA, we're both agencies under that line ministry of planning, economic affairs and development. So we work in tandem. So for example, right now I'm on the Sargassum task force. And you would have seen over the last couple of days, Tobago, even here in Trinidad, but there has been, tremendous. I think influx is an understatement of the beaches. Pigeon Point, that whole Bon Accord area, that Bonacord Lagoon, and what will happen is there will be infiltration, and it will negatively impact the mangrove and the seagrass beds. So again, we're going into the marine. We cannot disregard what's happening on land. My work in climate change education is also about that, because we look at greenhouse gases and so on, but we also look at the climate being regulated by the oceans. And if we impact that ecosystem, we would surely have the rise in temperatures and sea level rise and all the things that are happening now, which I think everybody knows about with respect to climate change and the whole business of getting to that level of getting action. So the information is there, and again, I want to refer to Minister's speech, which I thought was very effective, because it's about action. You know, the research is important. I'm not by any means saying that research is not important, but we have all the information, we have the data, we need to act. And I think action is not always easy for many people, because it involves advocacy. It involves sometimes saying things that others may not want to say. So, for example, as a public servant, I mean, we report to a ministry, which is, as you know, I consider myself a public servant. So I have to be very careful about the things I say. Not that I'm not going to speak the truth, but it has to be measured. You know, I can't go out there with a placard and talk about, you know, and advocate and say no to deep sea mining. Like one of my friends, Khadija Stewart, who is very involved with Jazz EcoBiz. Khadija is very, very involved. I mean, she right now is doing something in the UK with respect to deep sea mining. And last year I had gone to our ocean conference in Athens, and you know, I wondered to myself, because you know, I've done many of these things, but actually going to an ocean conference, well, what am I doing here? But then I realized the key role that I played in actually being involved in ocean conservation.
So as you're saying that, right, so I'm getting that the emphasis on multi-stakeholder engagement in these conversations. So why do you think it's important for persons, different stakeholders, to understand that connection between climate justice and ocean governance, and how they can have a more impactful role in that position?
So I am very much not supportive, but I work very much with civil society, because under the UNFCCC, for example, under Action for Climate Empowerment, which the acronym is ACE, we also include civil society, local communities, indigenous peoples, youth, children. So it's not just about the decision makers and the technocrats, because this is all about people. And if we're thinking about safeguarding livelihoods, we have to think about people. We have to bring them in the narrative, in the conversation. And I'm probably straying or going off course here, but I'm very, very passionate about getting youth, and that's why I was so impressed with your delivery this morning, because for me, the youth are not the next generation. You are the generation. You are seeing things, and there's also climate anxiety, eco-anxiety, which is something that is very real, because you're seeing things and you're wondering what's going to happen while we older ones, because I'm part of that generation X, while we older ones speak, but we need to act as well. And I think that's where you come in. It's important to have all stakeholders at the table, because everyone comes with a different frame of reference. The decision makers, those of us who are public servants, the advocates, the youth, that is so much part of bringing together not just the key players, but having having decisions that are participatory and are much sounder than if they are biased towards one group.
Yeah.
So I think it is, not that I think, I know it is important to have as many people as possible at the table and representative of different groups. Climate justice, you know, that is a word that is being used now because it's trendy, but I'm sometimes I wonder if people understand what climate. I'm not at all saying that it's something that we should not be thinking about, but climate justice is not just about legislation. It's about a human rights issue, and I think you talked about that this morning. It's about human rights. It is the right to be able to live in your space and not have to leave your country and migrate because of the impacts of climate change. It is about loss and damage. So for example, if your village, your community has been impacted by climate change, what is being done to compensate people? We're talking about people here, individuals, because sometimes when we say communities, it sounds like something abstract. You know, communities are made up of human beings. So climate justice is a human rights issue.
And what is really important as well is that everything you've spoken about, the High Seas Treaty actually provides for these avenues. It gives us, if we sign on and ratify it, it gives us these science-based technological capabilities, marine genetic resources, and mandatory environmental impact assessments. So I think everything you've said, it will all be beneficial if Trinidad and Tobago actually signs on and ratifies this treaty into a personal local act, into our local legal realm. And yeah, any closing statements to add?
I think, yes, you know, what you've just said is true, and I think many of those who are in positions who can, you know, really move this agenda forward, because we saw from presentations this morning how far behind we are in comparison with other Caribbean countries, smaller countries. That is disheartening, but at the same time there is hope, because people are now seeing and understanding, as David Attenborough said in the documentary, which I couldn't finish looking at because it was a little too traumatic for me. You know, there's a whole lot of uproar, public outrage when we bulldoze the Amazon or any kind of area on land. But when you have deep sea mining, when you have deep sea trawling, you don't hear anything because, of course, nobody's out of sight, out of mind. You know, so what we really have to do, like in that film, is to let people see what's going on out there. Because, I mean, not everyone can go down and dive and see the damage and the destruction. But to let them see and to make the links with our livelihoods and the health of our oceans.
I agree, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your insight and expertise on this critical topic. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you.